Carrasco, and thank you for reading.
Manny Pacquiao, the gold, I don't think there will be a problem for Manny.
Has his share of great fights. But every once in a while, human mind can also be controlled and nothing. Again, happening to nothing.
Only here para sa bayan.
That's the opening bell for Round by Round presented by Eastern Communications. Mabuhay Pilipinas, welcome world. I'm Nisi Kashan.
And I'm Ryan Sangalia. Boyd Sison joins us later on in the show.
Ryan, there's a change of scenery in the training camp of Johnriel Casimiro as he prepares for his WBO bantamweight title defense against Paul Butler on December 11. For this fight, he has his brother Jason around, former IBF minimum weight champion Manny Melchor is the one who's supervising the whole camp. Stephen Lunas will be his cutman on fight night. I don't know if he's related to retired boxer Rolly Lunas. Casimiro decided to set up camp at City Boxing in San Diego. At first, he was at the House of Boxing, but it made sense to have the whole camp at City Boxing because Melchor is a head trainer over there. Ryan, there is a rumored friction between Casimiro and MP Promotions, and it's not just with Sean Gibbons. According to sources, reliable sources, there is also a rift between Casimiro and Nonoy Neri, who was the one who handled this, I think, the past 3 fights, including the Rigondeaux fight. As the public looks for answers, isn't that just a dead giveaway that with what's really happening internally?
Well, you know, Casimiro is no stranger to bedlam and chaos in his camp. So it's almost as if this is a return to form for him. So when it comes to training, when you have a trainer and you're going into a big world title fight, stability is it's invaluable. Mm-hmm. So it does seem a little bit like an unforced error on Casimiro's part, but the way that Casimiro fights, it almost doesn't matter as much because he's a very instinctive fighter. For him, the big thing is just get in shape, and then he'll go out there and fight his fight. We'd seen when he has lost, it's usually been because he wasn't prepared. And just being outside of the Philippines for training camp, I think will help him bring out his professionalism. When he lost to Jonas Sultan, I feel in a large part he lost before the bell ever rang because he wasn't in shape. You know, he didn't do his weight cut healthy. I remember seeing him at the weigh-in for that fight, and he had mostly self-trained for that bout. He looked like he had died. So Stephen Lunas and Manny Melchor, they are professionals. I remember Lunas from his many years working with Mercito Hesta.
Yeah.
So he's someone who would be a valuable voice in the corner. And also Melchor. Melchor is a world champion. If they can find the right rhythm and chemistry, because Casimiro is a very much natural, instinctive fighter. He just has to go out there and be himself.
Ryan, by looking at the caliber of the opposition that he's going to face next month, do you think it's much better to have this new team assembled now rather than later, given that the fights against, given that the fight against either Inoue or Donaire could happen next year?
I think that stability is always best. If it's not broken, don't fix it. That said, there was a real need for a voice that Casimiro will listen to. And if he was listening to a voice in the Rigondeaux fight, he wasn't hearing the right things.
Yeah.
Because he never made an adjustment. Like this sort of reminds me of Prince Nassim Ahmed.
Yeah.
Towards the end of his run with Dominic Ingle, he clearly wasn't listening, and you could tell a guy all the right things, but if he's not going to go out there and do it, it doesn't matter. So that's sort of the issue I think with Casimiro. But Paul Butler, you got to remember, he's making a title defense. Butler has been a champion before. So if Casimiro finds a way to lose, that's on him because of this unforced error of upending your whole training team a month before a fight.
Ryan, are you surprised that Casimiro still opted to train in the U.S. for his next title defense? Because according to a reliable source, most of the expenses in his last 2 U.S. fights were shouldered by MP Promotions. Your thoughts on this?
I think that for him to get the most out of his training camp, he has to be in the United States. When he trains in the Philippines, the general feeling is that he's not doing it as seriously as it could be. There are distractions that come along with that. For him to be serious, he has to be in the Philippines. This is from talking with people in his own team. There is a marked difference, and when he's in the U.S., his professionalism comes out. He doesn't have his friends around as much. He doesn't have his inner circle. I think being in San Diego actually is probably better for him in some ways because he is comfortable in Los Angeles and in Las Vegas. San Diego, not as much. So if he can be away from people that he would be distracted by, even better.
Yeah. Switching trainers is not something new to Casimiro. He has done that a couple of times. I believe Maurice East once trained and managed him. There was one time that Rodel Mayol manned the corner for him. With this new team behind him, as someone who has followed and covered Casimiro's fights, do you see it as a long-term kind of relationship now with Melchor, Lunas, and now with this brother as part of the team?
I think his brother will continue to be his brother for sure. When it comes to Casimiro, it doesn't seem like there's anything that's long-term. So I think that if they are winning and they're doing well, yeah, sure. If things change, for instance, if he fights in the Philippines, for instance, and Melchor's not able to go over there, Casimiro will switch, I believe. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter so much who is in his corner, I think, because I don't think Casimiro does a great job listening to his trainer anyway. I think he's a guy who goes out there and fights. So he often doesn't follow game plans. He'll go straight back instead of circling around. He's a fighter. He's not a guy that it seems will follow a game plan. He'll go out there. He knows. He gets a feel for his opponent, and he goes out there, and he can either do it or he doesn't.
It's time for our Fearless Forecast of the Day, brought to you by Eastern Communications. On November 13, a pivotal super middleweight bout is set to take place at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, Arizona, as David Benavides takes on Kyron Davis. Benavides, who holds a record of 24-0, is a 2-time WBC super middleweight champion. Meanwhile, Davis owns a slate of 16-2-1. Ryan, what's your fearless forecast on this fight?
Well, I'll tell you, for me, I'm going to go with Benavides because Benavides is he's a young talent, really should be in the big fights. Hasn't been because of his own decision-making, which has been lax. But Davis, though competent, is a late replacement. And I got to go with Benavides here. I got to go with Benavides because I think he is probably the greatest single threat and has been to Canelo Alvarez at 168 pounds. If it wasn't for him losing his belt for various reasons, there was the time where he lost his belt because he had a positive out-of-competition drug test, failed drug test, and also he missed weight for another fight. He should have been there fighting for the undisputed championship. I mean, we may have had a Bernard Hopkins, Felix Trinidad situation. Remember how they did the middleweight tournament just to put all the belts on Trinidad, and instead we saw them wind up crowning Bernard Hopkins instead, and he kicked off a reign as one of the great middleweight champions of all time. We could have had something similar there, but Unfortunately for Benavidez, circumstances intervened. So I think it's on him. He has something to prove here. And Canelo Alvarez is still in the weight range. If he can get some momentum, Canelo Alvarez will need opponents.
Ryan, knockout or via decision?
I'm going to go by knockout. I think Benavidez has something to prove. I think he's going to go out there like a house on fire and really try to put things together.
So Ryan picks Benavidez to prevail over Davis this weekend. Now is the time for reliable connections. Eastern Communications Fiber One is ideal for powering small, medium enterprises that are on their way to digitizing their business and pushing forward to a strong and fearless tomorrow. Do contact 53007,000 or visit their website, eastern.com.ph, for more information about the service. And that's our Eastern Communications Fearless Forecast of the Day. The sporting world has been talking about Canelo Alvarez since the weekend following his 11th round knockout of Caleb Plant to become the first ever super middleweight undisputed champion. Presents a strong case as Mexico's all-time boxing great. But it begs the question, how will he fare against a great Mexican-American champion from another generation? So tonight on Round by Round, we'll pit Canelo Alvarez in a fantasy fight against Oscar De La Hoya. To break down the fight, we have 9 categories. First, power. Next is speed. And then footwork, stamina, ring IQ, heart, chin, and experience. And also X factor. The boxer with the most points wins the fantasy matchup. Ryan, are you ready to play the game?
I'm ready.
All right. First category, power. Ryan, who do you think has the edge in this category?
I'm going to go with Canelo Alvarez because he's knocked out light heavyweights. And I don't recall Oscar having any knockouts in his brief time at middleweight.
So that's 1-0 in favor of Canelo Alvarez. Now let's talk about speed. Who do you think has the advantage in terms of speed between the two?
I'm going to go with Oscar De La Hoya because Oscar had some of the fastest hands, not just with one shot, but in combination. So Oscar was a beautiful combination puncher, and he could put them together with the best of them.
Okay, so now the score is tied at 1 apiece. Now let's go to footwork. In this department of footwork, who do you think has the better bounce between Canelo Alvarez and Oscar De La Hoya?
Oscar De La Hoya had better footwork. He was a ring general. He could go out there and put you to bed with one shot. But as we saw with Felix Trinidad, whom he couldn't stand right in front of, he danced around him and really kind of made him look foolish before for some reason deciding to lose the last 3 rounds and giving the fight away.
I agree with that. Now the score is 2-1 in favor of Oscar De La Hoya. Now let's talk about stamina. Which boxer do you think has the better stamina?
I'm going to go with Canelo Alvarez because Alvarez has scored consecutive 11th round knockouts against opponents whom he had to really go after. Oscar was sort of known for fading late in fights. He did have that big 12th round knockdown against Icorte, but then as he was trying to finish him off, he basically shot his load and was not able to get him out of there. Oscar, for whatever reason, maybe it was tension, just seemed to fade in fights.
Ryan, it's interesting because now it's tied again, now with 2-2. Now let's talk about ring IQ. Who do you think has the edge in terms of ring IQ?
I would say Canelo Alvarez. Like we said earlier, Oscar De La Hoya gave away 3 rounds against Felix Trinidad in the biggest fight of that decade. So I wouldn't say that showed a lot of IQ. Canelo Alvarez can seemingly do it all. Oscar fought Floyd at the end of his career, so didn't really get to take those lessons and apply it. Yeah. But Canelo Alvarez basically somehow by losing to Floyd Mayweather became Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
So I would say
Great comparison.
shows his IQ right there.
Now the score is 3-2 in favor of Canelo Alvarez. This is becoming interesting, Ryan. Now let's move on to the category when it comes to heart. Who do you think has the bigger heart between the two?
It's hard to say because we haven't really seen Canelo pushed to that limit. So, but when you talk about heart, you're looking at Oscar De La Hoya, who's gotten off the floor numerous times in his career, come back to win, particularly early in his career. So I'm going to go with Oscar on this because, when he really needed a big knockdown against Ike Quartey, remember, he dropped Quartey in the 6th round, and then he was dropped. And then in the 12th round, needed a big 10-8 round. He went out there and scored it with the big left hook.
So the score is now 3-3. Now let's move on to another category, which is the chin. Who has the harder chin between the two?
I'm going to say Canelo Alvarez because Alvarez, he stood up. He went 24 rounds with Gennady Golovkin, never was knocked down. He's taken some big shots at the higher weights. Oscar had a good chin as well. He was never just sparked out cold, but Canelo, he's only been rocked really once, in a fight that I recall. That was against Jose Cotto, and he came back in that same round. He didn't go down. So I'm going to go with Canelo.
So the score is now 4-3 in favor of Canelo Alvarez. Now we're down to our last two categories. Now let's start with experience. In terms of experience, Ryan, I have to say this in Filipino. Sino naman ang nakakalamang, Ryan, between the two?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Oscar De La Hoya now because Oscar had a great amateur background. Oscar was a gold medalist. And look at the guys he fought. We're talking about Pernell Whitaker, Chavez Sr. twice. Felix Trinidad, Ike Quartey, Fernando Vargas. I mean, Canelo Alvarez fought a lot of great fighters as well, but Oscar De La Hoya fought, it seems like the entire International Boxing Hall of Fame of the 1990s and 80s. So, people can say whatever they want about Oscar De La Hoya, he got some decisions that maybe he shouldn't have gotten, but he fought everyone and fought him twice if there was money to be made.
Ryan, it's down to our last category, which is X Factor. Who do you think has the X Factor between the two, between Canelo Alvarez and Oscar De La Hoya?
Geez, I didn't realize I was going to paint myself into a corner like this.
It's 4-4. It's tied.
Oh, wow. Why would I do this to myself? This is another unforced error on my behalf. So when we come down to X Factor, we're looking at just anything that can give a fighter the edge, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. Canelo Alvarez fought at a different time when you can sort of pick your opponents, matchmaking.
Yeah.
And I think that gives him an edge because he can, look as good as he wants to. That said, Oscar De La Hoya was just an absolute dog. When it came, it didn't matter if he had to look bad to win a fight. Yeah. He would go out there and do what he had to do. He could look awkward at times. He didn't have to just look pristine.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. Oscar De La Hoya had one of the greatest left hooks of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it this way. He fought an era with Felix Trinidad, and I think he had a better left hook than Felix Trinidad and a better jab. So for me, if we're talking about them fighting at a common weight, let's say
154 or 160, no?
I would say if they fought at 154, give it to Oscar. If, under one circumstance, he had Robert Alcazar in his corner.
Okay,
so Oscar De La Hoya would have beaten Canelo Alvarez.
Just to settle this, who do you give the X Factor category?
I'm going to go with Oscar De La Hoya.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this fantasy fight with the score of 5-4 is Oscar De La Hoya.
Oscar De La Hoya. Jim.
For our next segment, we turn it over to our colleague, Boyet Season.
Mga kaibigan, ladies and gentlemen, here is part 2 of our exclusive interview with female light middleweight, and super middleweight boxer, Christy Salters Martin. A lot of people, of course, know the name Muhammad Ali, and you had the opportunity to fight Layla. How was that experience?
Yeah, fighting Layla was, it was a great experience. She's big. She's a damn big girl. She's probably 6 inches taller than I am, at least, maybe more. And was definitely 20 to 30 pounds heavier by the time we actually got into the ring. But I knew all those challenges when I took the fight. I was still confident. I felt like that I could win. And so many people wanted to talk about, she's Muhammad Ali's daughter. It didn't matter. Muhammad Ali wasn't the one getting in the ring, right. And it was just me and her. So if we fought 10 times, I think I could still win 5 of them. But the one that we fought is the only one that counts. And she clearly won that. And, by stopping me. It was a great experience, though. Great experience. We filled the house. We sold more tickets, more pay-per-views than any female fight ever has, and probably ever will, at least in the near future.
For somebody who has, gone through a lot as far as the world of boxing is concerned, what for you? When do you tell a fighter that it's time to hang it up, so to speak? When is the right time for a fighter to hang it up?
That's such a hard question to answer, because the right time is probably different for everybody. And everyone around the fighter can see the right time before the fighter, because the hardest thing in the world is walking away from the boxing ring. Once you're hooked by this terrible drug of boxing, you just don't want to leave it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know when you tell someone the right time is. And it's tough because now the fighters are getting older and older and staying in the sport longer. So everybody's on their individual curve.
You mentioned that you suffered a stroke as well as having a near-death experience, which we'll tackle a bit more in the next questions that I'll have for you. But how is life for you now?
Life is good. I'm married to a beautiful woman, Lisa Allawine, who was actually a former opponent. But we're good. We're in Texas and doing some boxing promotions, working with Christy's Champs, which is my nonprofit for domestic violence awareness. Busy all the time and hopefully making a difference. I said that from day one, waking up in the hospital after being shot and stabbed, I said, God left me here for a reason. And that, in my opinion and my thought, that reason is to help someone else not go down that same road that I went down. Mm. Somewhere along, recently, I've changed my mind. It's not just about helping 1 or 2 people for the rest of my life. I want to help a different person every day. And by talking with you, hopefully somebody hears us, and it does change a life every day. So I'm working hard to get the story out there, to make people more aware of domestic violence, and hopefully really, really change some people's life.
Are there any other aspirations as far as Christy Waters is concerned?
Christy Martin Promotions is moving along. We're trying to establish ourselves and signing some young and upcoming talent. Hopefully we can get to that next level and start to secure some TV dates and find ourselves a champion. So that's one of the goals. But again, with Christy's Champs, that's a big goal, that just to move forward and really help some people out of some tough situations.
Ladies and gentlemen, very recently, Netflix started a series that deals with a lot of real life experiences of people that have, so to speak, have been able to overcome adversity and then some. In the Netflix series entitled Untold, Deal with the Devil, it tells of the story of Christy Waters. Christy, how was it watching yourself and your story?
It's it's tough. It's tough, especially when Jim did the interview, just to see him and see his arrogant self again, and listen to his words, and it's so much. It's not even the words; it's the tone, and it's the same tone that I know better than any person that could have viewed the documentary. I think Laura Brownson did a fantastic job putting all the pieces together and speaking with different people that were really relevant as my life and career grew. And then the aftermath of Jim trying to kill me.
And now, after all that, after that very horrible experience, you've come out stronger. You've come out a better person, and you've been inspiring a lot of people with you wanting to help others. Christy, I'll make this question a bit light before I ask my final question. In the time of the pandemic, a lot of things have been happening inside the world of boxing, but more than anything are all of these celebrity boxing matches which involved internet celebrities. How do you feel about this?
You know, that's a tough one. I think it hurts boxing. People say that with this attention that the internet celebrities are bringing, it's helping boxing grow, but it isn't. I don't hate on them. I mean, they figured out how to hustle something and get paid, and hey, more power to them. More power to them. But are they helping boxing? No, because it comes down to this. I have some young talent that are busting their butts every day in the gym, working a real job, and then doing boxing, which is also a real job, and getting paid $1,500 for a fight. And they turn on the TV and they see Jake Paul fighting that's never had a fight before, probably making millions,
yes,
or at least close to it. So, of course, he deserves to make it because he's bringing the viewers to his event, but it's not helping boxing grow. It's a tough one for me.
Well, Christy, for my final question, the Christmas holidays are just around the corner. Christmas is about to approach for the world. The world is currently still in the midst of battling the pandemic. But what will your advice be to your fellow human beings?
You know, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned Christmas because Christmas and my birthday were always days that I would say, you know, when Christmas comes, I'm going to give myself a gift and I'm going to leave the situation that I'm in. Then whatever reason you stay, and then my birthday would roll around in June and I would the same conversation with myself. I'm giving myself a birthday present. I'm leaving the situation. I would say to the people out there, give yourself that present. If you're in a tough situation, give yourself that present. Don't let it go to one more birthday or one more Christmas, because you may not make it to that next birthday or that next Christmas.
Christy Waters, it is an honor and a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You have a great day, and I'm sure I'll speak with you again soon.
Thank you very much. Mga kaibigan, Christy Waters. And that was our interview with Christy Salters Martin, female light middleweight, and super middleweight competitor and champion, as well as a boxing Hall of Famer.
And that's the final bell for today's episode of Round by Round, presented by Eastern Communications. I'm Nisi Casiano.
I'm Ryan Sangalia. We're on Facebook at 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and on our YouTube channel right after. So like, follow, share, and subscribe now.
Dennis Principe, Boyet Season, and Bill Velasco are working the fights for you tomorrow. So catch them on the next Round by Round. All boxing, all Filipino, all the time. See you tomorrow.